Well, good evening, all, and welcome back to another episode of When It Was Real. This show focuses on the glory days of the WWWF in the 70s, the very perfect time to grow up as a professional wrestling fan. Now, I'm just some house show ticket taker, but this other guy, he's the guy putting the fannies in the seats, the one and only Nikita Brezhnikov. Nikita, how are you, my friend?
Beautiful. Good to see you, my brother. Hello
Likewise,
to
my friend.
everybody, and thank you for all the support out there. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. So we're going to quick word from the sponsor, and then we are going to do what I think is going to be a very, very interesting show.
Yes.
This is Benny Scala, the one and only player. Folks, I am beyond excited to be co-hosting this new show, When It Was Real. And I am just as excited to be announcing our new sponsor, the Free Spirited Company. Free Spirited is a phenomenal old-school clothing company that specializes in short and long-sleeve t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, graphic tees, heck, even yoga pants. These t-shirts are, to quote Rocky's manager Mickey Goldmill, a wake of art. Yours truly will be rocking the free-spirited merch on each and every episode of When It Was Real. Not only are these shirts eye-catching, but they are very comfortable as well. Like what you see? Please go to shopfreespirited.com and use our special code MP20 to receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Again, that is shopfreespirited.com, and that code is MP20. As the poet laureate of the Monte The Pharaoh YouTube channel, I will leave you with this. If you like what you see, go buy a tee. Heck, maybe 2 or 3. When your friends tell you, hey, you look like the bomb, send them over to shopfreespirited.com.
Beautiful.
Amen. Now, Nikita, before we start, we're going to do our customary toast.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Now, before we toast the wrestlers, I'd like to toast Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, who passed away, I believe, today, and Sylvester Stewart, who was known as Sly Stone, of Sly and the Family Stone. I believe he passed away 2 or 3 days ago. So thank you, gentlemen, for the great music, and to all the wrestlers, the tag team wrestlers from the days of yore, when it was real. Salute.
There we go. Listen to you. Everyday people. That's us.
Yep, I like everyday people. All right,
Yes.
Nikita. So tonight we pick up right where we left off last week. So last week we talked about the history of New York Tag Team Wrestling. We went all the way back to 1957 and the New York Riot, and then we talked about the International Tag Team Championship with the iconic Mongols. We can never forget them. And then finally to the WWWF World Tag Team Championships. We started with Luke Graham and Tarzan Tyler, I have in parentheses, winning the belts on June 3rd, 71. And we got all the way to October 26th, 1976, the date Willie Gilzenberg stripped the executioners of the belts and declared that there would be a tournament to declare new champions. Are you ready to pick this up where you left off?
I'm born ready.
All righty.
All right. So it boiled down to when somebody said, please don't say it was just 3 teams, but it was. Basically, the executioners were in the tournament, top contenders. Tor Kamata and Nikolai Volkov, what a combination. And the Indians, Chief J. Strongbow and Billy Whitworth. Yeah, I mean, Tor Kamata, he never got used properly, in my opinion. I mean, this guy was a beast, and they did nothing with him. So what happened was the taping that occurred October 26th, or actually, when Gilzenberg, who, by the way, was president of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, if you didn't know. So the next taping, December the 7th, the first hour, second hour, to get down to the finals. And the third hour, we got the final. So it's the Indians against Volkov and Tor Kamata. So the Chief and White Wolf get the victory. Now, the way it played out on television, December 11th, 18th, and 25th, because that would be the subsequent Saturdays that it played out. So 25th, of course, Merry Christmas. Everybody's happy that night. They're watching, and Strongbow and White Wolf are the champions. They didn't actually make their first Madison Square Garden appearance with the belts till January 17th, that fateful night when we almost lost Ken Patera because of the horrible weather conditions, and the house was down so much, and the old man was ready to just say he's done, but Bruno intervened and saved the day. So the first title defense for Strongbow and White Wolf is against the Executioners, and it's a damn good match. If you got a chance to see it, I think it's on YouTube. It's out there somewhere. 2 out of 3 falls. Man, they were off to the races. We're happy. Again, Bruno's champion. The Indians are the tag champions. Just popularity abundant. So what happened was, and I couldn't tell you, I thought that Billy White Wolf actually had a neck injury, not from Patera, but that they played it in. But I was smartened up by my publisher, the one and only great Scott Teal. And he said,
guy.
Yeah, he said, no, Nikita. White Wolf was actually wrestling some of those nights where they said he was incapacitated. He was in Maui. He was all over the place. I'm like, what the hell? So at least, and here we go again, the tag team curse for the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. At least he must have given them due notice because they played it perfectly. And let me segue into it. The taping before the May 24th taping, Strongbow issued a challenge to Patera. Nothing involved, nothing involving White Wolf, nothing other than, hey, I think I can beat this guy. So Albano, they accept. Yeah, Squall Man, we'll meet Squall Man, no problem. So May 24th comes. Oh, before now, in the Garden, May 16th, Superstar's first title defense. Chief and Patera just have a 20-minute war. I mean, the tables, they chased Vince out of his seat. Chief got a broken nose. He's there with a bloody nose. It ends with the Chief has a sleeper on Patera, blood running down his nose. The bell rings, of course, was everybody thinking, hey, he's done. He's done. Draw. We go to the time limit. It's like, damn. So a couple of days later, May 24th, the first hour, they honored that challenge. The Chief is going to meet Patera. Well, of course, there's Lou Albano. Turns into a damn handicap match because, Lou's in it. Finally, Lou just come in the ring and they're attacking Chief. Well, here comes Billy White Wolf with the tag belt. Bang, he hits Lou first. Then bang, bang, he opens up Patera. So naturally, they ring the bell. It's a big schmozz. Nobody wins. The next week, Patera comes out. This is the second hour of the May 24th taping, and he challenges White Wolf. White Wolf accepts. So in the third hour is where we get the swinging neck breaker match, where he breaks White Wolf's neck, done to perfection. It looked like
absolutely.
Yeah. Have you ever seen it, Benny?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Isn't it great? It almost looked like White Wolf was going to win.
That was work to perfection.
Yes, Patera missed the knee in the corner, and then he was going for the Indian Deathlock, but Patera was able to push him off. And then after he hits the corner, he's dazed. Then boom, the swinging neck breaker. And it's weird. Chief never came out at any point to try to save White Wolf, to help him back to the dressing room. Other wrestlers came in, SD Jones, Johnny Rivera, and it's like, wow, that's, what the hell happened to Chief?
Yeah, that is very bizarre.
Yeah, we were kind of pissed about it. So at that point, there goes White Wolf. He's done. So
now Nikita, real quick, if you don't mind,
sure.
Dan and I had Patera as our guest for our 100th episode. Still my favorite interview on the show. But what he said about White Wolf was that you mentioned Hawaii. I guess he had a home there, and he said something that he had a very large cyst on his back, and he needed to get it removed. And that was the reason he was leaving. So I'm not sure how much there is to that, but
now there you go. Now that's probably what I was hearing about. There was some kind of legit neck injury. There you go. Thank you. A perfect guy like Patera would know. So then, you get a cyst removed. What? You're back in 2-3 weeks. But I guess the Federation was like, we can't deal with that. The bean counters are like, no, he'll be out. So this time, Chief comes out on the June tapings and says, Billy's out of wrestling altogether. We were hoping he was going to come back. And maybe they were thinking he was. Who knows? Maybe the reality of it was it gets the cyst removed and he comes back. But then maybe he said, I'm done. I ain't coming back.
Right.
So then it's like, all right. So Willie Gilzenberg comes out again after that interview. So Vince says, all right, Mr. Gilzenberg, what of the status of the tag team championship? He said, well, we're going to have a meeting with the board of directors. We've never had anything like this happen before. So on the taping of August the 16th, then there's Gilzenberg and the Chief and Vince. And I tell you, when you saw that interview, you got a real good idea just what a big man the Chief was. I mean, on television, he looks like a fat uncle. But
Right.
when you seen him in person, it's like, son of a bitch, he's huge. And his hands and everything else. And I mean, he was in fantastic condition. So Willie Gilzenberg says, okay, what we've decided, we met with the board of directors, and we're going to have to take the title away from Strongbow and White Wolf, and we're going to have the top two teams. We're going to have like a wrestle one match, and they're going to determine the champions from that. And it was funny because, well, Chief played it out good. He was humble. He's like, this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my career, to give these back. And, Chief goes off camera. So then Vince says, okay, Mr. Gilzenberg. But then he says, well, the two teams we've decided on, Professor Tanaka and Mr. Fuji. And Vince jumps in. They've been declared champions. And Gilzenberg's like, no, no, no. They have to meet the team of Tony Galeria and Larry Zbyszko 3 weeks from tonight. Now, that would have been September the 6th. But what happened, here we go again, the tag team curse. And it's Professor Tanaka and Haystacks Calhoun again. So they were wrestling in North Attleboro on August the 19th. And it was crazy. It was Ted Adams and Haystacks Calhoun against Tanaka and Fuji. Well, this time Tanaka's ankle got cracked. And the reason I know it's that date, because the Professor's got all his commitments up to that point. The next night at the Spectrum, he and Fuji were supposed to wrestle, Putski and Maivia, and they had to have Rocky Tomeo fill in. And from that point on, Fuji's wrestling with all kind of different goofy partners, like Gypsy Rodriguez and Moose Monroe, and is like, what the hell? So then until the September the 6th taping is when we found out. Fred Blassie comes out. Here comes Tanaka on crutches with Fuji. But now in the Garden, before the September the 6th show, on the August 29th show, Tanaka shows up at ringside on crutches. Chief's wrestling against Fuji. So it's kind of like, that's strange. That's all Vince said. We'll discuss this at a later date. Apparently, Professor Tanaka has an injury. So then it's disclosed at the opening of the September the 6th taping that, Professor Tanaka has an ankle injury. Freddie Blassie said it's a stay of execution for Tony Garea and Larry Zbyszko, because as soon as he heals in 3 weeks, which would be the next taping, by the way,
Right.
September 27th, we're going to teach those pencil neck geeks the last lesson first. So that was also the first time that Strongbow and Maivia teamed up, the two Chiefs. And man, did they take off. And I think it may have happened because there was supposed to have been a match at the Bangor racetrack. I think it was like August 19th, or a little bit later in August. And of course, no White Wolf. So Maivia filled in. And I think maybe Monsoon was there, or definitely somebody, Arnold Skolin, somebody that had a voice that said, man, those two, they can get it done.
Right.
So there we go. We got Strongbow and Maivia together. Now, one parting thing Gilzenberg told Strongbow when he took the belts away, he said, if at any time Strongbow finds a partner he's satisfied with, we will name that team the number one contenders. So it's like, ooh, well, that's good. So we'll see what happens when these other teams get together. Garea and Zbyszko with Tanaka. We'll see what comes of that. So naturally, when that match took place, the first fall, Garea gets hit with the kamikaze clothesline. It's like, oh, shit. This looks bad already. Then Larry gets Tanaka to submit to the half Boston Crab. And it's like, Tanaka, you can see, because, Tanaka always wrestled barefoot.
Right. He was
This
wearing
time,
boots at that point. Yeah.
yeah, he had the boots on. He had them on in the garden a couple of nights, the night before. So he got the submission. So Professor, he's not in tears, but he's just got sweat pouring off of him. So he's sitting on the apron and he's massaging his leg. And then Zbyszko and Fuji are running the ropes, and boom, Tanaka scoops Larry. Down he goes head first, and they get the pin. And it's like, son of a bitch. Tanaka and Fuji got the belts. Unprecedented at that time. A third time. Yeah. Nobody had ever done that before. Now, remember from last week, wrestling fans, we told you they were the first team to recapture the belts without leaving the area. They lost to Gurria and Calhoun, and they came back and won. They re-won the belts September 11th, and then that's when they lost to Ho and Gurria. So here we are, September the 24th, or the 26th. So, that, again, Tanaka and Fuji, even though Professor, he had a little bit of trouble for a couple of matches after that. I mean,
with the ankle.
Yeah, you just don't jump back from something like that, especially a man that's 285 pounds like he is. That's a lot of weight to be putting down on that damn ankle. Because I got to tell you, through the years, you talk about Davey O'Hannon and all these other people that we know, wrestlers, that the injuries they've incurred.
Many surgeries, yeah.
I'm sure Patera gave you an earful. Because like he said, that military press, he told me, he said, why the fuck did I do that? It's like, man, do I pay for it now? It's like, it was amazing at the time.
Cartilage in his knees, yeah.
Knees, spine, everything. So, with that, Nikolai, he didn't have any of the traditional injuries, but he did have bad ankles and bad feet, because when 330 pounds goes out of the ring, and I mean, once you know what you're doing, you know how to sort of control it if you're lucky, but you're going to hit the floor. And if you hit feet first, I mean, that's pretty tough. Because I'll tell you what, let me get off topic just for a second. Can you imagine which sport has the most liver and kidney damage to its athletes?
Liver and kidney. I would guess football.
It's basketball.
Really?
And the reason is because they take over the course of a game, they're just popping aspirin because their feet and their ankles, and I guess their knees as well. I mean, that's all they're doing, like a kangaroo, right? The running, the hopping up and down. It's like, because I was never a basketball fan, but I remember Wes Unseld, who played for the Baltimore.
Number 41. Yep.
And I saw, because he lived in Maryland, and I saw him years later, and it was like, wow, he was hunched over, heavy, because he did have no more mobility, because the knees, ankles, and feet were shot. And it's like, none of this is bullshit, people. I mean, they really paid a price for us. When we salute them, we're not bullshit. We really appreciate what they did. So,
Nikita, real quick, let me. I want to get your opinion on something. So, it's so ironic, that with the singles title, it's very formulaic that you have Bruno, you have Pedro, you have Backlund, and there's that rotation of heels, never-ending rotation of heels coming in, moving up the card, beating Danucci or beating Arnie Skolin, whatever, facing Bruno at the Garden. They go anywhere from 1 to 3 shots, and then they slide back down the card. Next guy heel comes up. I mean, for what, 20 years they did that. But the tag team titles were the polar opposite. You were swapping them back and forth. But I think it worked.
Yeah, it seems like 3 months would usually be the normal run. In some cases, it would go a little longer. Of course, the Valiants and Tanaka and Fuji got an extended run because they were box office gold. Yeah, how can you take it? I mean, it's like, if you have a business, you're going to do whatever the hell's working and keep going with it. As long as it's legal, you're paying your taxes, keep it going, man. Don't change a thing.
There's a lot of value in having a great heel team like Fuji and Tanaka, and the baby faces chasing them.
Yes, without a doubt. And they could get it done. Now, after Tanaka and Fuji, in comes Dino Bravo and Dominic DeNucci. Of course, Dominic was in the area, but Bravo came in the tapings on January 31st, and it was wild because Dominic was wrestling with SD Jones against, or wait a minute, he came in on that taping, and so we got introduced. But the next taping, it was the day after Backlund won the belt. It was February 21st. So they opened the hour. Vince, of course, interviews the new champion. Then Dominic and SD Jones are wrestling against Cicluna and Stasiak, which that was a team that had some damn good merit to it. And they were getting, SD got hurt. He's on the outside. They're basically like trying to stuff him into the corner, just smashing him into the ring post. Bravo hits the ring. And it's kind of like it was flat. Usually when somebody hits the ring to make a save, the whole arena erupts and it goes crazy. But it was like, I don't think they really caught on to Bravo yet. But then he and Dominic formed a team right away. The next week, they come back and they beat Stasiak and Cicluna. So they're off to the races. So then the next taping, March the 14th, in the first hour, they challenge Tanaka and Fuji. And it was the same old, same old. You know, they got Dominic in the full Nelson. Fuji's holding him. Professor goes for the Cobra. Dominic ducks. He catches Fuji, and they get the pin. So everybody's happy. It's non-title. So then the second hour, Fuji's wrestling Larry Zbyszko. So Freddie comes out. He's talking to Vince. And Vince says, you know, Mr. Blassie, the victory last week by DeNucci and Bravo, they're clamoring for a title match. Would you put the titles on the line? And Blassie's like, do you think they deserve a title match? That was a fluke, a quirk. There's no way. He said, if you think they do, we'll put the titles on the line. But if these two pencil-like geeks end up in the hospital, it's going to be on you, not me. So then, of course, the third hour, same thing, misses the thrust. And then he's doing the airplane spin. Fuji gets knocked down, boom, pins. We're happy. Bravo and DeNucci. And there's a wild story, Dino Bravo. That's the best he ever accomplished in those days, at least, when it was real, in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. This is a guy, I mean, he was destined to go rounds with Superstar. They could run city to city. You name it. Arion, pick anybody you want. But it just never materialized. I don't know why.
Now, this is not the same. I mean, the guy we saw in the mid to late 80s, all
Right.
roided up.
Yeah.
Totally different Dino Bravo.
Well, he was a 500-pound bench presser there.
I mean, yeah, definitely heavy-duty power lifter.
Yeah, and he had the mobility. He could drop kick. I mean, he could do anything you needed. Good-looking guy. He had the fan base behind him, but I don't know. The push just never came. So in comes the Yukon Lumberjacks. And Pierre's name was Rajan Gagnon, whatever. And, of course, Scott Irwin was Eric. Now, to me, you could have kept them. They were like
somebody in the chat room asked. They thought it was Bill Irwin. It was actually the late Scott Irwin, correct?
Definitely Scott Irwin. Now they were the equivalent to Serdan and Parisi as heels. It's like, what the hell, man? They didn't wear the belts most of the time. They were dead as singles. I mean, they were definitely face fodder. They didn't defend the belts in Madison Square Garden, but one time. It was supposed to be Chief and SD Jones, but Chief had a problem, so Monsoon filled in. And then the next time, it was actually to get the Chief and Maivia's feud over on October 23rd. But they beat Dominic and Dino June 26th in the Garden. That's when we get one fall title changes from that point on. Before that, let me correct myself. When DeNucci and Bravo beat Tanaka and Fuji, that's when you got one fall title matches. Before that, it had to be 2 out of 3 falls. So then the one fall win in the Garden, and it was well done. I mean, Bravo and DeNucci did everything in that match. The airplane spin, and then interference by Pierre. The abdominal stretch, interference by Pierre. And it was like, and then as Billy Caputo was getting Bravo out of the ring, they give Dominic the double axe and pin him. And of course, everybody wants to burn the building down because it's like, what the fuck? You're doing all this other shit. This one you miss. And it's like, yeah, that's the perfect formula. It always worked.
Oh, yeah.
So the Lumberjacks lumbered along until that fateful day when we had the big move where it went from the Philadelphia Arena. The last taping there was Halloween, 1978. And then they went to which would, to me, made more sense, the popular Allentown Agricultural Hall, because it was a smaller venue. And let me tell you, that first night, November 21st, those people, those fans they were just ready for it. They were so excited. You could feel it without a doubt. And they loaded it. That card, that taping. I mean, of course, it makes sense. You want to have everybody come back. You want them to act like they're crazy, which we always were crazy. So, in fact, the second hour led off with the Chief against Arion in the first match. I mean, can you imagine that on television?
Wow.
Yeah, of course, double DQ, but they tore each other up for 8 minutes. It was great. So the first hour, now this is what our good friend Tony Gurria was telling us about when he said, Larry was told, hey, you know what? The night before, I guess this would have been in the Garden because that's where they wrestled on November the 20th. You're done, Larry. Tomorrow you come to the taping and you settle up with you, and that's going to be it. But then Dominic wrestled Crusher Blackwell in the Garden on November 20th. He got his ribs, I believe, bruised. I don't think they were broken or cracked. I mean, that's enough for anybody that ever had it done. So what they decided was, if you had ever experienced it, breathing is suffering the whole time.
Yep.
God forbid if you think you're going to do anything, no kind of slam. No, I mean, they can't touch you. You can't stand the pain. So they said, okay, Larry, don't go anywhere because we're going to put the belts on you guys tonight. So they set it up the first hour. Tony and Larry makes the save. Another challenge in the second hour. The third hour, there they are. And there was only one belt brought to the ring for that title change. So Lou's out there with Eric and Pierre and doing his goofy thing. And in the end, I don't know how they figured this out, because people always like to say it was choreographed. It's like bull fucking shit. There was no time to choreograph anything. I don't know what they do today or recently, but it was no choreograph. But this finish, do you remember it, Benny?
No, I don't. You have to remind me.
This is really the coolest shit I'd ever seen. They're in the ring, all four together. So they take Eric. He collides with Larry. Then they take Pierre, throw him into the ropes. It's like, oh, you think they're going to collide? Eric drops down. Pierre runs over him. On the rebound, boom, that's when they collide. Correa covers 1, 2, 3. They get the win. It's like, man, that was cool. That was well done. Can you imagine? I mean, you couldn't blow that spot. Somebody in the company would probably skin you alive. It's like, but that was well done. Perfect. So there they are holding one belt together, and Lou went after the Lumberjacks. He nailed Pierre hard. You could see it. He didn't catch him in the balls, but he caught him good, probably just under the knee or something, because Pierre was pissed. You could see, because he grabbed the Albano shirt and threw it back at him. But that was it. Eric left after that night because there were a lot of bookings that Pierre wrestled with everybody and his brother just to fill up the card. But one really cool particular match was in Boston on December the 5th. It was Pierre and Blackwell against Andre and Bravo. Of course, when it was signed, they were still champions. So people thought Andre and Bravo were probably going to win in Boston. But it was a good square off between Crusher Blackwell and Andre. Of course, Andre came out on top. But again, there's another guy. And I think we've said this before. Crusher Blackwell never got his due. It's like,
great big man. Very agile.
Yeah, agile. Stamina. He could drop kick.
Drop kick. Yeah.
He could go out of the ring and come back again. It's like, son of a bitch, what more do you want? He actually wrestled Backlund at the Spectrum. And
Okay.
they had a hell of a match, and Backlund gave him the atomic knee drop. So it's like he could get it done, but for whatever reason, again, they didn't ask me. And something I neglected when we had Tony on a couple of weeks ago, he wrestled Harley Race on the big holiday card, December the 18th. Of course, Race won, but to me, that's more epic than Tony wrestling against Superstar. I mean, that was going to happen because
Harley Race.
But for the company to say, because at that point, that was the first year that Japan got involved. Oh, well, no, see, let me back up a minute. Though that's when Hisashi Shimano became the president of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in that month. And it was like, now New Japan, All Japan, whoever it was, they're all involved with what's happening. So you had more of a presence. So to put Tony in there against Harley Race, they had to believe in Tony Garea. They weren't just going to throw some chump in there just make Harley Race look good. Harley Race could look good with anybody. So it's like, that was great. So we have that, but better news than anything, on December the 12th, the Valiant brothers returned. And they were still Jimmy and Johnny. And man, were we excited. It's like, holy shit. The Valiant brothers. Tony did have quite a history with them, so it was appropriate that he inducted both into the Hall of Fame, which was the second induction. And so it looks great. Here they come with Lou Albano. But what I liked, on the first run, how the programs would list all these different cities. I saw them from Spokane, Los Angeles, Chicago, which made sense since they did come from the AWA. But then it was that when they introduced them that night, they're walking to the ring and Joe McHugh saying, "From Los Angeles, California," and Lou's blowing the whistle and he's waving him off and he screams, "New York City. I'm sorry, I've been corrected, from New York City." And that was great. On that run, they kept it New York. So here we are. The Valiant brothers are back. It looks exciting. The next taping, January 3rd, fine. Everything is going according to Hoyle. The Valiant brothers make the appearance. They're doing their thing. But then Jimmy, and I guess we can honor the HIPAA rule. We'll just say he got sick.
He got sick,
right.
Yes. He had a medical issue.
He came down with a medical issue. So it's like, there's that curse again, son of a bitch. And there's no way, folks, he could wrestle. He was out. He's going to be out of commission for a while. And you could see it because he at least came to make some appearances with the new Valiant brothers, which I'll get into in a second. But you could see that football physique because he used to play for the Illinois College, University of Illinois. Jimmy Valiant was like Mr. America in the 1971.
He worked at a gym in his youth. He was a trainer.
Yeah, but he lost that definition for a time there.
Yeah, big time. And that followed him the rest of his career.
Yep, he got sick. So it's like, okay, so put the heads together. What the hell are we going to do? Because Tony and Larry really were scheduled, after March 6th, we're going to fulfill our commitments and then we're gone. We got other dates set up. It's like any business. And again, for the idiots out there that say Vince McMahon should give them a pension, Vince McMahon should give them medical, it's like, no, you're an independent contractor. And if you don't set yourself up for the next job, you screwed yourself. So this is what they did. That's like, all right,
you're incorporated. Everybody's incorporated, right? You're your own company.
That's it. And I'm that way. And it's like, you got to take care of yourself. So it's like, all right, what the hell are we going to do? We got to get the belts off of Tony and Larry. March 6th is when the plan was set. So Johnny apparently was the guy that came up with to find Jerry Valiant, the guy Mitchell. He knew him from Indianapolis, and he said, look, this guy, he looks like he's close enough. He could fit in.
Yeah, he could pass.
Yeah, he could do it. He's a pro. He's been at it for probably 10, 15 years, whatever, because they weren't taking any chances with anybody. It's not like you walked in the door, they said, hey, let's try the belt on this guy, or let's get in. It's like, no. You had to really do the dance with the bean counters. So the first taping we see him is January 24th. Or wait, let me back up. Johnny wrestles as a single for that taping. He went to a draw with Larry. So it's like, okay, whatever. We don't know any better because we just figure, they put him in as a single. So then February 13th was when we get introduced to Gentleman Jerry Valiant. And Lou Albano comes out. Give credit to Lou. He sells it. I told you, surprise. I told you I had a surprise in mind. A third Valiant brother. And, Vince were right along with it. It's like, wow, and even as they were signing off and he talked to Bruno and he's like, gee, Bruno, a third brother, I don't think this has ever happened in wrestling. And Bruno's like, no, Vince, to my knowledge, well, we knew the Grahams, but Bruno just kind of went along with it. So everybody in the moment and all that. So the next day, February 14th, was when the Chief does his angle with Greg Valentine. No pun intended. It was Valentine's Day, but nobody knew about it because by the time it was shown, unless you were there at Hamburg when it happened, by the time it was shown, it didn't really, because it was the last taping of that hour of that show, then it wasn't hitting the markets until around March the 5th. And in some cases like Baltimore, a week later even. So they were safe with that. But by March 6th at the next taping in the first hour, and they're, that first appearance by Jerry, they had him go over. He pinned SD Jones in a match with Dominic and SD, him and Johnny. So it's like, okay, SD would say what you want. Like they always badmouth the Baron that he was a jobber. He was this, he was that. But SD was solid. And you get a win over SD Jones. It meant something.
You had to work for it.
Yeah, I'll go a step further. Tony Atlas says, I'll be honest with you. He said, SD is stronger than me. He said, I worked out with the man in the gym. And you could tell this guy was built.
He was thick. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. And he had the charisma. The only thing it took until 1981. And we'll see if we get into that. We'll see how far I run my mouth because it's already getting 38 minutes. But, they tried to give him a push in 81, which was good. SD deserved it. But anyway, for now, that was they beat them in the first hour, Danucci and Jones. And then the third hour, they wrestled Gurria and Zbyszko. And of course, that one where Larry gets hit in the groin as they're running the ropes. He goes down. The two Valiant, or Larry and I think it was Jerry went down. So then Jimmy pulls Jerry out of the ring because he's making an appearance. He's starting to hit the circuit, at least to be on the outside of the ring. And it was a nice circus. It looked great. Lou Albano, Jimmy Valiant, the Valiant brothers. So Jimmy pulls Jerry out and Johnny crawls in because they just had an in-ring collision. He lays over Larry, who's laying there because he just apparently lost his manhood, and he gets a 3 count. Now, I'll tell you what. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it wasn't the last match. But after the last match of the hour, it was Flying Fred Curry against Mr. X, which was Fred Curry was just disaster on that run. Vince brings out Albano and the Valiants. Now, again, it's the last match of the taping. The fans are starting to mill closer and closer. And you can see the oh shit look on Vince's face. Now, Lou's starting to go crazy. He's in the ring running around. The Valiants are out there screaming. Fans start beating on the ring and stomping, banging chairs. And Vince is looking like, oh, man, this is going to get ugly quick. So he says, okay, thank you for your time. And, thank you very much for your time, which meant get the fuck out of here. We're going to have a riot. Beat it. So then Vince calls Bruno out. He said, Bruno Sammartino, come here, Bruno. Let's talk about this. I guess Vince wanted to have jump on Bruno's back if it broke bad. At
Right.
least he had a bodyguard. So that was done pretty damn good. I got to admit. The situation with they took something bad and they molded it into something really good, because we got a lot of really good 6-man matches out of it with Jimmy, Johnny, and Jerry. I mean, it worked at perfection, at least in my opinion. And yeah, you never had that happen before. The only problem was I was no big fan of Jerry Valiant. Not after Johnny and Jerry's run, or Jimmy and Johnny's run. It's like,
Yeah.
how in the hell? And nothing disrespectful against this man, but it's like
No,
this just
he
doesn't
was
cut
a
it.
good journeyman, right? He was, good hand, but not it didn't have the charisma of the other two. I mean, who did?
No, no way. But I tell you what, there was no good face teams to put them up against as well. They would throw Dominic out there with SD, and it's like, in an arena show, that's not the greatest thing in the world. Steve Travis, sometimes Travis and DiBiase, who had hit the arena in 79. And it's like, that ain't it. The only title defense that the Valiant brothers, Johnny and Jerry, had was against Santana and Putski when they lost to them on October 22nd of 79. They did meet Haystacks Calhoun and Steve Travis as part of the Battle Royal after the 8 matches that followed the Battle Royal on June 4th, but it's like that was non-title. And Travis and Calhoun, it's like, okay, that's not Calhoun and Garea. It's a big difference. Yeah, rookie of the year, but he's not Tony Garea caliber rookie of the year. So, it's like it was a dead summer with the Valiant brothers as champions. Johnny wrestled Bruno in Baltimore in a singles match. He wrestled Backlund at the Spectrum, and that was a damn good title match on August the 18th. And they had what was called Valiant Brother Night. Jerry wrestled Andre, and he wrestled Andre in a bunch of places, including the Garden. And then Jimmy against Steve Travis. So it wasn't bad. 1 out of 3 won that night. But July at the Spectrum, 21st, the Valiants wrestled Backlund and Putski. They did defend the belt there. And it was a damn good match, but it was a setup for the Johnny Backlund main event, because before the whole thing started, Johnny slaps Backlund across the face. And I mean, he walloped him good. It was Backlund, I think, that he knew it was coming probably. And it was like, man, that caught him really like off guard. So as the match progresses, Backlund gets whipped over by Jerry. He's whipped over to Johnny. Johnny pulls the rope down and Backlund goes out of the ring. So while Putski comes in and Jerry's dueling with him, Johnny rams Backlund into the post. Backlund is cut. So we get the whole thing where it plays out. Backlund has to go back to the dressing room. He's able to make the tag first to keep it legit. And he goes back to the dressing room. So Putski's like, I'm going to take him on myself. And the whole crowd is going crazy. So, of course, Putski starts to lose. There's no way you're going to beat the two Valiants. And a fan almost got in there. People were ready, again, to do the riot without a doubt. And then Backlund hits the ring. He's got looks like the guy that blows the Spirit of 76 with the fife, and he's got himself all wrapped up. I mean, that was just great. Perfect. Excitement galore. Just well done. It was beautiful. And then, like I say, it set up the title match. And Bruno wrestled at Long Island. 1 month he wrestled Johnny. The next month he wrestled Jerry. So they knew how to use them and get the most mileage out of the Valiant brothers. So they actually tried Tito and Pete Sanchez for a taping. Not bad, because Pete had come back after being laid off for maybe 2 or 3 years. They said he went into business with his father and, he kind of hung his trunks up. Then he decided he wanted to get back in. Still in great shape. He looked good. But it was like, Tito his first appearance at the Garden was that same night of the Battle Royal, June 4th. He was way over, as he always was, and he always will be. But with Pete Sanchez, it just didn't have the kick. So it's like, you saddle a horse, and if he just flops to the ground, or he walks around a little, you're not going to ride this horse anywhere. So then somebody come up with the idea of Ivan Putski. Well, they wrestled the Valiants on television. It quickly, it was just a matter of the third hour, and they get this title match, and they won, but it was by disqualification. They being Putski and Santana, won by disqualification because Lou Albano interfered. So that's when we get the Valiant brothers split with Lou Albano. And Lou was going crazy. He's ripping his own shirt. He's grabbing Vince. He said, I'm through with the Valiant brothers. And it was like, that was earth shattering for us.
Oh, yeah.
And then the question comes up, are they going to turn face now? That's like, no, there's no way. How the hell are you going to do that with the Valiant brothers? After all the dastardly things they had done through the years, no way in hell. They're not going to be a face team. Just can't be. So they did do a great thing with Jimmy and Lou, where they had Jimmy put Lou over on the November show, November 18th at the Garden. It's like, wow, who would have thought Lou Albano would pin Jimmy Valiant?
That's amazing.
Of course, he hits him with a foreign object, because you're expecting the typical, right? Jimmy's gonna bloody Lou, and Lou's gonna run off to the head for the high hills, and that's gonna be it. But no, this time Lou Albano gets a friggin' pin on somebody, and I was like, holy shit! And I guess because at that point, from what Johnny had told me, Jimmy made his mind up. That was it. He was done being a Valiant brother. He was going to start doing the Boogie Woogie Man, and that's exactly where he went.
Yeah.
Down south, Memphis, all over. He's his own thing. He's the Boogie Woogie Man. No heat, no problems. There was no arguments over money, or I didn't like. He just decided he was done with that end of his life. He wanted to be a solo, and it made great sense.
And they prolonged his career too.
It prolonged his career, and I guess he felt like, well, you know what, Johnny, you got Jerry there, so you guys can run with that.
Yes.
Well, that wasn't going to happen, obviously, but so in the meantime, we get the same day that Hulk Hogan made his debut, November 17th, at the Allentown tapings, we get the Samoans make their debut. Now, of course, you talk about all-time great teams. We had Sal Corrente on a couple of weeks ago when I had audio difficulties, everything was all screwed up. But thank you, Sal, for carrying with Benny. But the Samoans, you've never seen anything like that before.
Oh, God, no.
I mean, I saw them walk into Baltimore in the winter, and they were barefoot. And it's like, what the hell? I mean, you can't believe anything like that. But these guys were incredibly tough. And yeah, we'd seen Chief Peter Maivia. He kind of laid the path for the Samoan dynasty. But as a team, I mean, my God, you looked at him, and it's like, who can beat them? With the Samoan drop, which, hey, you got to give them all the credit in the world. That was genius. That's a great move, like a fireman's carry, and you drop back, and boom,
devastating back then.
Yeah, that's going to screw you up good big time. You're going to be visiting the chiropractor for the next 6 months. So that, and the headbutt, the devastation of the headbutt. I mean, it was incredible. But before I keep waving the Samoans flag, let me back up a little bit. After Putski and Santana become tag team champions, it gets weird. It's like they were doing more Putski as a single and Tito teaming up with Gorilla Monsoon, Dominic DeNucci, a couple of other people. And it's like, what the hell's going on here? Why aren't we seeing Putski and Santana? But they wanted to get the belt. I guess maybe Jimmy said, "Look, I'm going," and I guess they figured this Valiant brother thing is going to fall apart. Even though Jimmy was just like a third guy, usually on the outside, it's like this ain't going to fly unless it's all three right at that stage in their career. So somebody's got to win. So the Samoans going to have somebody to beat, but they got the mileage out of Putski because he and Patera had a lot of battles throughout January of 1980. And we're going to jump into 1980s a little bit, people. We have to. It's just all as part of it. The part of the history, it plays into it. So I don't know. It was kind of weird, but it worked. And why the hell, if you were going to do that, did you make the Samoans wait so long, all the way till April 12th to get the belts? It was like the last ditch effort at the Spectrum.
They had about a 6-month run, Ivan and Tito, about 6 months.
Yeah, but like this half-assed run where it wasn't always Putski and Santana. So it's
was that kind of the same thing, Nikita, like they did with Gurria and Haystacks, because that, give him the Rookie of the Year shine, because didn't Tito win the Rookie of the Year in '79, I believe?
No, Steve Travis did.
What year didn't Tito win it, or did he?
No, because Travis had beat him to the punch. Yeah.
All right.
So
I remember. Yeah, I do remember Travis won it, but I guess that was '79. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was '79. So it's like, if you're going to do this, the Samoans were solid enough. It's like, it's not like, well, gee, we don't know about if they can carry things, because they were well established. San Francisco, all over the place. That these guys, they're it. They can do it for your territory. Put the belts on them. They're definitely it. Just looking at them, people jaw dropping, like, what the hell is this?
I did a little bit of research on WrestlingData.com. They, before they came to the WWF, they had won everywhere. Champion, they were always on top. Always on top.
Yeah. Yes. So why the hell? Because they wrestled Putski and Santana in the Garden in January. They were Baltimore in February, all over the place. The Capitol Center. It's like, what the hell are you waiting for? Because it got to the point almost where we were thinking, I don't think they're going to win. Because then they started to go as singles. But that was more because Bruno and Larry were starting to hit the area. So for the Garden shows in March and April, it's like, we don't need to waste Backlund with Patera or Duncombe or anybody else. No offense. I have great respect for the Samoans. I love them. Always got along good, worked with and for Alpha many times. But it's like, they're not what you'd call big main event material. So
not as singles, no.
The matches they had with Backlund were incredible, especially Sika. It was the first night that Bruno was going to wrestle Larry. And it was like, when he came off the top rope with that headbutt, and Backlund, he should have got the fucking Academy Award that year. Whatever Hollywood jerk won it should have given it to him. Because Backlund, unless maybe he got crushed, maybe he got the potato, because that's a tough move to make. He sold it, but then he was able to reverse it, and he got the pin. But afterwards, he was just like, man, like he was in a car wreck. And that's what you got to do. And from what I've seen and what I've heard for today, that's what's lacking. It's like, you don't get up after you put your opponent over or you beat him. You make him look good, like he just half crippled you. That's what makes the whole thing work. Not that you're Superman, which nobody is. So we finally, April the 12th, they beat Putski and Santana. Now, that was a double that day, because I was at the afternoon show at the Capitol Center. Almost the same exact match, because in fact, that's where Putski got the cut at the Capitol Center that afternoon. He got rammed into the ring post. So, and it was funny because, but actually later at the Spectrum, because they ripped the bandage off and they opened it back up. Putski's wiping his head with the ring apron, wiping the blood off. I mean, you can't imagine how dirty those things are. It's like, well, you just gave yourself hepatitis and who knows what itis. It's like, oh my God, don't do that. Please don't wipe that open wound. So they win, rightfully so. Finally, the Samoans win But that was another situation where somebody fell asleep at the switch. The belts are in the dressing room, and it's the last match of the night, and people are filing out, and the Samoans are, and I don't blame them. It's like, we want the friggin' belts, we want to hold the belts up. So finally, somebody runs back, and you can hear it because that was televised on the Spectrum Network. And, because Dick Graham and Cal Rudman are like, they're the champions, right? I mean, we got the 3 count. Where's the belt? So finally, you hear one of the attendants holler, "We need the belts. We need the belts." So somebody comes running, and then they hold the belts up. So it's like, okay, now it's official. Perfect. So the Samoans had the same problem through that the Valiant brothers had through that summer of 79, summer of 80. There really wasn't a solid team to challenge them. Again, you got Dominic and Rene Goulet, but it's like, they're okay.
Yeah.
But, they're not going to make it across the street. Okay. So it's like, that's not it. It helped the Samoans get over. They put Dusty Rhodes and Pat Patterson together in the Garden, but you knew they weren't going to win because Dusty's not going to get tied down with a belt.
Right.
He's not there every month. So it's like, it was neat, but it just wasn't going to work. So finally, for the big Shea Stadium show with Bruno and Larry, the Samoans are defeated, which it did shock me, by Bob Backlund and Pedro Morales, because it's like, I never would have believed that you would have a heavyweight champion win the tag team belt. I just would have never believed it to be, but of course it did happen. And that was more for Pedro because he was just coming back into the area and they wanted to give Pedro a rub. And that was good because his first match in the Garden was because the Madison Square Garden had laid off for a while. They had, I think, the Democratic National Convention there or something else. And that's what the Shea Stadium event was always about. Because really, they said Bruno and Larry drew 40,000. So that's good if it's true, because, 22,000 would be the usual Madison Square Garden show. So a lot of times, like the first Shea Stadium with Bruno and Pedro, didn't draw that much. But it was okay. They did good. But Backlund and Morales, they said they relinquished the titles immediately to pursue individual goals. Of course, Backlund's the heavyweight champion, and Pedro wanted to go after Ken Patera, which was coming up in another taping that he and Patera would start their feud. So they decided, okay, we're going to have a tournament again with the tournament. And it came down to, and we talked about this with Tony Gurria, it came down to, well, Tony and Rene Goulet, they beat, of all people, Silvana Sousa and who the heck was Mr. X, Silvana Sousa, it's like a dud team. And of course, the Samoans, they beat Dominic and Rick Martel. And it's like, wow, that's a hell of a team, Dominic and Rick Martel. But somebody got the idea. It's like Gurria and Martel, because of course the Samoans beat Gurria and Rene Goulet. So it's like, Gurria and Martel. And baby, they decided they weren't going to wait. November the 8th, they put Gurria and Martel on television, a couple of tapings, and it was like, yeah, they're over. They're crazy over. And so it's like November the 8th, Tony was supposed to wrestle Sergeant Slaughter at the Spectrum, and Martel was going to wrestle Samoan number 2, but they rearranged the card. And they made the tag team match, the Samoans against Gurria and Martel. So it's like nobody was complaining. That's beautiful. We'll take it. So it was kind of funny because Tony did an interview with Cal Rudman and Dick Graham, who were the broadcasters for the Prism network that would broadcast, not Prism on the, it was cable for Philadelphia. And they were talking about the match that was going to take place, almost talking about it as if it had happened. and then because Tony said, it'd be the fourth time I'm tag team champion. And like, throw an if in there, but it worked out beautifully. So that ending, as we talk with Tony, for people that missed it, I'll recap it quickly. It was a double pin, one fall. Martel had a Samoan on a sunset flip, and Alpha, I believe, had Tony in a sunset flip, and Dick Worley slaps 3 times. Okay. And he stands up, and everybody's like, what happened? Who won? And Worley's just like, wait a minute. Worley gets the belts. He's got them draped over his shoulder. Gary Capetta comes into the ring and makes the announcement, and then we all find out together. And man, that was perfect. That was well done. Again, jubilation. Everybody's excited. They're screaming. They're, perfect. Gurria and Martel are the new tag team champions. And then we get the Moondogs. Now, I know we're at the hour mark, but I'm going to go over a little. We want to try to put this to bed tonight, guys. Not that we're rushing it, not that we're cheating you, but I think a double header is probably about as much as you can take. So that's not the Moondogs we originally saw. In fact, when Randy Cully hit the arenas in September at the TV taping, he was Ripper Hawkins, okay, for 2 out of the 3 hours. Comes back the next taping, October, he's Moondog Hawkins, still by himself. Then in November, we get the Moondogs. And it's like, they were wild. And of course, we all remember our favorite, Moondog Lonnie Main. And they were just about as crazy, except Sailor White, who was Moondog King, was 345 pounds. And when he did the big splash, he would take a running start, come off the ropes, and go up high and come down. And Daddy, that was a big splash. Now, initially, they were a little bit clumsy. They were a little bit off key. But then each week, even Vince and Pat Patterson was saying, the Moondogs are starting to gel. Now, they were on the December 29th card at the Garden, wrestling Gurria and Martel. Tony got clobbered with the bone. Poor Tony had to do a blade job that night. Looked great.
That was unusual, wasn't it?
Didn't get the belts, obviously, because it was disqualification. But then they start making the circuit. And it wasn't until March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. And it's like, I remember Vince's words, this has to be some kind of a nightmare. The Moondogs can't be tag team champions. It just can't be. And it's like, that was great. That sold it so perfectly. And it's like, yeah, are you kidding me? The Moondogs. But they did get their shit together, and they were tough. They were a damn good team. I'm saying, King, it's like, wow. Go ahead, Benny. What do you say?
No, I mean, they worked for me. They were pretty believable. I mean, big, tough guys.
And they didn't have matches with Backlund, but they each had a match with Pedro Morales at Madison Square Garden for the Intercontinental belt, and each one was a battle. Pedro worked his ass off. Pedro, I think he gets the Academy Award as bestseller of all time. He and Tito, they make you believe they just got a gunshot wound the way they sell things, and then make the big comeback. But King against Pedro, that was, to me, or I'm sorry, Mil Mascaras. He did wrestle Pedro, but King against Mil Mascaras on April the 6th, that was the night that Patterson wrestled Slaughter at the Garden. That was a damn good match. And he put Mascaras over pretty good. I think he could have handled Mascaras if they cut him loose, but, what the drill was there. So the problem was he did the TV the next day, but then King went back home to Canada, and wherever he was, whatever was going on, he couldn't get back in. They wouldn't let him back in the country. And I mean, Vince Sr., he picked up the phone, and it ain't happening. So it's like, here's the curse again, son of a bitch. So that's when they dig up Moondog's spot. And I'm sorry, but he didn't have it. He may have been 265 at his best, but no, it just
Not
wasn't
quite
the
the
same
same.
Moondogs. I didn't get it. They they did a great match with Yokiyashi Yashu. Do you remember him? Yatsu
Yes. Oh
Yokiyashi
yeah.
Yatsu. He and Tatsumi Fujinami, because it was like, look, Fujinami's getting to be too fucking big. He can't be junior heavyweight anymore. He's almost pushing 250. So, those are lighter guys, like 220s to cut off. So they put them together and they had a pretty good match, 2 out of 3, in fact, at the Garden. And, you know, but of course the titles couldn't change hands because those two guys from Japan, they're not going to be around that much. So
Right. They're
them to
not. Yeah.
win the belts isn't going to make sense. So July 21st, Tony and Rick Martel get the belts back. Allentown Television, beautiful. But then comes Mr. Fuji knocking at the door. But this time he's got Mr. Saito, and no less devastating than Tanaka.
Oh,
oh, oh, daddy. I say that's Mr. Constipation. I see Saito, I'm going.
he's
I'm going
backed
the
up.
other
Yeah.
way. Because this is a guy was a gold medal or silver medalist winner in the Olympics, whatever year. I think it was 68.
He was a
Judo.
shooter. I mean, he could handle himself.
Yes. And he had the size. I mean, I've been the tallest guy in the building, but he'd break you in 3 pieces. So Fuji and Saito, here they come. And again, like we talked with Tony, Pat Patterson, Pat had Vince's ear at that point, Vince Jr. and Senior. And he worked with them and Tony in California, San Francisco, and it was like, they can get it done. Now, Fuji, they tamed him down because when he was the great Fuji out on the West Coast, he would rival the original Sheik, Ed Farhat, with his bloody matches, or the sheep herders, the original bushwhackers. I mean, Fuji would bleed. I mean, and he'd make you bleed. But they tamed him down. They didn't want it to get too crazy. So Fuji and Saito, they were a perfect tag team. And their ending was beautiful. October the 13th of 81, when Martel's on the top rope, getting ready to do the high dive, and whoosh, Fuji throws the salt. And I mean, they sold it perfectly. Roll up Martel, get the 3 count. And it's like, wow. And they wrestled. That was October 13th. They wrestled at the Garden on the 19th. It was already scheduled before the title change, and they just carried it over. It was a great knockdown drag. I think that even though it was Backlund and Valentine in the main event, it was good. That's where they got the screwball finish at the end, where Valentine's hand was raised. But Fuji and Saito against Gurria and Martel, that was almost the main event. That really carried its weight. So, they go on, they're battling Tony Gurria and Rick Martel. And then comes the return of Chief Jay Strongbow on March the 30th of 82. And he brings his brother Jules. And I was happy, but then all of a sudden sad, because I didn't see the championship wrestling taping. I saw the All-Star wrestling taping because they would come on Saturday mornings at 11. And when Chief came out and I saw the white headdress, I immediately thought it was Wahoo McDaniel. And I was so excited.
Oh
And
my
then
God, that would have been great.
it's like, who the hell is that? And then when they said it's his brother, I'm like, his brother? I mean, what the hell? But the old man apparently wanted it. That was his idea, because that's when Bruno and Dominic were going to do and that Mike Mittman, who was the timekeeper at Hamburg, they were going to do that IWA or whatever the hell it was called. And they were whistling about bringing the Chief and Putski in. And the old man said, no, you're not. He grabbed them back up. But, Chief was not a young guy at that point. And I think the deal was, I probably want to do more tag teaming than anything. And then that's when the old man said, okay, we'll do the Strongbow brothers. And Chief was like, I'm giving my name up here, but, okay, whatever it takes. So, of course, they win the first meeting. But the great thing was it was played out well. The Strongbows beat Adrian Adonis and Jesse Ventura on the June 5th card. at the Garden. And well done. Beautiful. Because, Jesse and Adonis, they were big AWA tag champions. They
Yeah.
never really had the time to develop them as a tag team in the World Wrestling Federation, but still, you beat them. That's great. So next month, they get the title match. But for some strange reason, I mean, we know why when we talk about what happens, Putski is assigned as the guest referee. Usually that happens after you have a ref bump or some screwy finish. So whatever, Putski becomes guest referee, and the finish, Chief pins Fuji. Fuji's got his foot on the ropes. Putski doesn't see it. So when we come to television on July 13th, they say there's been a decision by the officials of the World Wrestling Federation that decision cannot stand because it was obvious reviewing the tapes. It's like, what? After all the shit we've seen through the years, now you're reviewing tapes. So, okay. They're going to have a 2 out of 3 fall traditional tag match on television. First fall, both Strongbows are blinded. And then they get the pin on Jules. Second fall, it looks like, that was like 1 minute. And they were, Jules was pinned. Boom. Second fall, they come back. They get the sleeper. Jules puts Saito down. Fine. Third fall, they're going back and forth. Chief's got the sleeper on Saito, and then Lou hits him from behind with whatever. We never see what it was. Something big and white, probably a rolled up piece of paper, which would make sense. As long as you don't touch it, you don't know it. So they get the 3 count, and it's like, how the hell do you let that stand? And that's when the Strongbows, they come out, they're attacking Fuji and Saito, and they had the sit-down strike in the center of the ring. They said, we're not leaving until we get this thing straightened out. So fine, they battle throughout the rest of the fall into the winter, and then they get the belts in November. What the hell was it? November 26th. They win the title, and it's like, okay, good. The Strongbows are the tag team champions. That's nice, but it was still kind of like, I don't know. They got the belts, but after watching all of that between Fuji and Saito and the Strongbows, it was getting a little bit tarnished. They dragged it out all the way till the final card of the year, which was actually on a Wednesday that year in the Garden on November 20 or December 28th. It was a Texas death match. And it's like, well, a Texas death match, but it was just a bullshit 1 fall finish, and that was it. Boom, they were done. They're out. I'm sorry, that was October 26th that they pinned them in one, not November, October 26th. So it's like, okay, so we're done with the Strongbows because they said Albano fired Mr. Saito, and he kept Fuji on. But by then, the Samoans had returned. So it's like, well, what do you think is bound to happen? Didn't take too long. The Samoans returned November 16th at the TV taping. And by January, they were at the Capitol Center January 3rd of 83 against the Strongbows. They were the main event at the Spectrum February 19th. Well, not the main event, but it was one of the first matches announced. And they said there's going to be a 10-man and possibly a tag or a heavyweight title match, which it turned out to be Studd and Backlund. But of course, it was inevitable. The Samoans, being the Samoans, March the 8th, they beat the Strongbows. Boom. Just like you figure it was going to happen. And they kind of had the same problem again. They're really, no disrespect. The Samoans were tough, but there wasn't a good face team to go up against them throughout 83. They put a bunch of combinations together, and it's like, okay, the Samoans are going over. Good thing because Sika actually, I think he got a broken ankle at the Civic Center. It was a 10-man tag. What was it? It was March the 12th because they had a double that day at the boy, I was in my glory at the Capitol Center in the afternoon, and followed everybody to the Civic Center in Baltimore in the evening.
Wow.
It was March 12th, but Sika apparently got a broken ankle. So that's when we get Samula. He started to fill in. So he started to pick up a lot of the bookings until Sika recovered. But it wasn't until November when we got the fantastic combination of Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas. And immediately it was like, boom, they are it. This is just like the fantastic combination. And when Rocky and Tony won, yeah, they were, well, as it was said, they were the first black tag team champions ever in the history of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, or World Wrestling, but it was all the same. And it's like, how could they not be? But the finish with the chair, the oak chair, when Albano goes to hit Tony Atlas, Atlas ducks, boom, and he splinters the chair over Alpha's head. And then Tony pins him, but the chair is still wearing it like a necklace. It's like,
Yeah.
holy shit. And you could see him walking off to the dressing room, and Alpha's still wearing it. He's cut to shreds, and they're pointing. I guess they're pointing like towards Albano, and they're mad. But it was like, wow. I mean, it doesn't get any better. And we loved Atlas and Johnson as a tag team. I mean, they got it done. For all the shit that was said that they didn't get along, who cares? It doesn't matter. Before our eyes, they were a great tag team. And they went on into the cartoon era. And when they dropped it to Adonis and Murdoch, to me, they were the last tag team champions, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, in my opinion. And because at that point, it was just like, then it started to get stupid into 84. Sheik and Slaughter was great. And, I love my Nikolai and Sheik as a team.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm going to say these two, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, were the last tag team champions.
What was that song by Don Henley, The End of the Innocence? That's kind of what this reminds me of.
Yes.
But
and to see Tony with tears in his eyes, it was like he appreciated it. They knew it for what it was. And thank God it was beautiful.
So I want to see if I paid attention here. See if I get the math right. So I have only 2 3-time champions were Tanaka and Fuji and the Wild Samoans. I have the longest reign is 370 days by the Valiant Brothers. The shortest was 15 days by Jay and Jules. Then that's if you don't count Backlund and Pedro. Gurria is a 5-time champ with 4 partners. Fuji's a 5, which I did not know. Fuji's a 5-time champ with 2. And then the Chief is a 4-time champ with 3 partners. The titles were vacated 3 times. And then there were 2 reigns, which is Danucci and Rivera, and then the Moondogs, where a partner was subbed. Did I get it all right?
You got it all right. Now, don't forget, the Chief and Sonny King were in that short run, too. They were pretty short. What were they, 30-some days?
Yeah. You know what? Hang on for a second.
May 22nd to June 26th, or June 27th, yeah.
Let's see.
May 22nd, to June 27th. And
they were 36 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was sad. We liked it.
Yeah, just Bob and Pedro. They said, did they actually officially recognize Bob and Pedro as champions?
Yes, they had the belts. They took the pictures. They did an interview, and they said, we just decided that, we have individual goals. Actually, Backlund as the heavyweight champion is impossible to defend both belts. And they didn't reveal that Pedro was going after Patera yet, but that would come with the September the 9th taping, where Patera came out and said, where's all the competition? I ran Putski out of town. Where's Pat Patterson? I beat his butt. And then that's when Pedro shows up, and he mentioned, and Patera was bad-mouthing Bruno, and Pedro said, I'm a good friend of San Martino's. I hear, baby. And then is when it started until the night John Lennon was killed, December the 8th. And for the official date, November 17th, with Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson.
Okay.
God love them. I mean, we were happy. It was just a good team, great combination, 2 guys. And I tell you what, I saw Rocky run a couple of months in a row on top with Sergeant Slaughter, and it ended in a cage match. And man, it was spectacular. And I was one of the better reasons, I was right in the front row for the whole thing. I was on a run getting front row seats for like 4 months in a row. Man, you can't believe seeing a cage match that close. The only problem is you hear too much when you're that close.
Right. Rocky
But
was, I believe, very underrated. I mean, he had a great run in the NWA. He went up against, I'm thinking Harley and who else? I mean, he was right
and
up
I'll tell
there.
you what, he and Tony were champions out on the West Coast, and they wrestled at the Garden on November 22nd of 82. That was Snuka's return match, and he went against Albano. But they mixed up the card a little because Tony and Rocky went against Ricky Chushow and Saito. And at the end, that was the last match of the night, and Tony was coming out of the ring, and he was going like this. And even Vince said, look at that gorilla, because Monsoon was doing the color. He said, look at that. Tony's indicating maybe this is a new partner for Tony Garea, and maybe he'll go after the tag team belts for a 6th time. And they could have done it. But then it was Tony wasn't back in the area yet. He didn't come back till like the following May. But it could have been, but they weren't done with the Strongbows yet and all that. So who knows what the masterminds would always think. We were never included. We were just lucky to turn on the TV and watch it every week.
Hey, that's all I wanted.
Or if you got Christmas and you had your tickets and hit the arena, hallelujah. It was
even better.
Christmas every month.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, Nikita, I cannot tell you how much fun this was. It was educational for me, but fun. And to me, doing the research for this show, it was enjoyable, although not quite as enjoyable as your great book, When It Was Real, where people can get all this information and much, much more.
There it is, guys. Even though you see it on the screen, the great Scott Teal at crowbarpress.com. Or if you don't like to hold these in your hand, there's a Kindle version on Amazon. $10 for the Kindle. This thing is 20.
I'm old school. I mean, I do have a Kindle and I have books on Audible, but to me, there's nothing better, and especially that book. I mean, you have to have the book.
My wife Victoria, and I'm not exaggerating, she's been reading since age 4. These kind of words, not bullshit books for kids. And there's nothing like holding a book in your hands. And look, I'll tell you what, guys, I just went to McDonald's the other day. It almost cost me as much as this book. So it's not that expensive.
No, I will tell anybody who's listening that if you have not read this book, you're depriving yourself, literally. It's a great book. You don't have to read it sequentially, although I think it kind of makes sense to do so. But, and once you've read it, you can go like randomly to any, you want to go back to 1977. You can do that. Go back to 73. You can hop back and forth. I mean, I think it's a rare gift when any writer, and that's what I try to do when I write for Pro Wrestling Stories. You want to get the person in that mindset where they're actually back in 1973, because then you're thinking, oh, who's my girlfriend then? What job did I have? Who were my friends? Who did I hang out with? What did I do besides, watching wrestling? And that you just relive that time. And to me, there's nothing better than that.
And I'm not going to go too deep because we're going to give you a little surprise early. July 2nd, we're scheduled to have Scott Teal, the publisher and editor and co-author of the book. So Scott will be here. If you have questions, please send them in to Benny or just tune in. You'll hear all about how it was put together. It's a good story. It really is.
Scott's a great guy. We've had him on Dan and Benny. Just, very humble, down-to-earth guy. But, I mean, so many great wrestling books have come out of Crowbar Press.
And if it's not from the heart, Scott Teal won't deal with you. He's
Right.
not about the money. Of course, we all want to do well, but nobody ever gets rich from any of these endeavors. But it's to preserve the history of professional wrestling. That's what he's all about.
That's true because, the books that I've purchased from Crowbar Press, they're all very similar. Like, yours, obviously, really, it's almost like you're going back in a time machine. Ivan Koloff's book, very, very much written, like, straight from the heart. Very, very frank, but a very good book. But all of his books have that same recurring theme that, it's very genuine. It's not, it's not pulp. It's the real deal.
And I'll tell you real quick, and if you have a chance, Facebook friend Scott Teal or look him up. Every year he holds a reunion at his house. He doesn't charge a dime for a lot of the wrestlers from the South. I'm lost when it comes to that era. They're like, he learned a lot as we did this because he wasn't following the Northeast. I didn't follow the South, but a lot of those names that are still around, I mean, Scott's just so benevolent and opens up to them. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. It was an honor and a privilege to meet him.
Just a great guy. I'm proud to call him a friend. So, Nikita,
Yes.
many thanks to everyone who joined us tonight for When It Was Real. We promise some great stuff going forward, and we just disclosed one of our guests, and we'll always deliver the goods. So please hit the like and subscribe button so you won't miss any episodes on this great Monte the Pharaoh YouTube channel. I urge you to check the channel out. There's literally a treasure trove of excellent interviews, and one of them was Tony Garea that we talked about. And we'll be back next week. And so for the great Nikita Brezhnikov, this is Benny Scala, the one and only player, also the poet laureate of the Monte the Pharaoh channel, leaving you with this. Nikita, we talked about many great teams. This was the wrestling version of Field of Dreams. Tag team wrestling was such a big deal in those magical days of When It Was Real. Good night, folks.
До свидания, товарищ.